In my book, I'm going to show the difference between three types of people. There's a mindset of a slave, and then there's a mindset of a master, and then there are leaders. Now, between the slave and the master, you don't have people at the extreme ends. I mean, I would say, for instance, that the transatlantic slave trade show the extreme end of the slave concept, the slave mentality, and the slave way of thinking. And I think it's a very good way of understanding what it means to be thinking like a slave. And then in the same plantation, if you think of the behavior of the masters, then you would understand what it means to operate like a master. And then we have the kind of people, the group of people, they are quite few, who sit above the slaves and the masters. And these are the leaders, true leaders I call them. But there are no stark slaves and stark masters. What you find is that people are there in the middle. So somebody, for the most part, will be operating in the mentality and the mindset of the slave. And then when they get the opportunity, they exercise that domination, that authority over others in the way that they have seen the masters operate. So I am going to go into these over a series of videos to depict how these mindsets sort of operate in our day-to-day life. But to understand what it means to have a slave mindset, I think it's important to look at the extreme image of the transatlantic slave trade, and that will give us an idea of what it looks like. And it is not so much about the images or the things that people did, which is what makes one a slave, but it is more about the way the slaves are made to behave. Okay, their sense of value, their perception of their own abilities, the motivation, what drives them to do any work that they do, okay, and their aspirations as slaves, and also when they are in a better position, like than their peers. And let me go into all these very quickly. Now, slaves are made to behave in a certain way. For most slaves, they don't do things because they want to do it. They don't go to sleep because that's when they want to sleep, or they don't take a day off because I'm not in a good place, or I don't feel like working today, or I'm not well, or I think this is not actually great today, or this is not worth doing. They don't have a say in that. They literally have to obey orders. They follow the script. They have to. And why? Because if they don't follow the script, there is the consequences of punishment. There is also about the sense of value. And if you look at it from different points of view, from when a slave is placed on a platform and auction, like you auctioning cattle or any goods, that in itself begins to degrade, devalue, dehumanize the slave, and your sense of value is almost nothing, because you may come into contact with intangible items which may even be more expensive than yourself. And so from there on, your own sense of your value is completely diminished or depleted. Okay, and then we have a sense of ability. Okay, I heard a quote, from Don Lemon, who was speaking to somebody, and he said there's a reason why somebody would like to teach you about the Bible and make you practice, but they wouldn't want you to read. Because what happens is that the ability of the slaves are controlled and conditioned in the way that the master wants it to be, so that the slave does not grow or develop beyond what the master has expects or has conditioned or programmed them to be. So they want you to be a master sugarcane cutter or whatever. You are expected to do something like that. Now begin to think about this and the parallels between the things that we do today. And I'm going to come to that in subsequent videos. Okay, and then there's also about the motivation for work. Slaves don't work because they want to work for it. In fact, they are forced to work. They don't have the right to even determine what they do. What they do is to feed somebody else. And this sort of mindset, this sort of motivation, the reasons, the purposes, underlying the things that slaves do, would define how that mentality, that way of thinking, that way of behavior, that sense of value, how that has existed, even till today. So that the pastor that Don Lemon was speaking to said, I wasn't on the plantation. I laughed when I was watching, because I said, actually, there are many people who are still living in a virtual plantation. If you are living and you don't have a say in what you do, and your every action is dictated by people other than yourself, and you don't even make any determination, and your reason for waking up every day is for the fear of punishment, the punishment of not getting your salary, the punishment of not getting the luxuries that you are used to, then begin to think that you are still being influenced by the slave's mindset. And I'm going to go into that, give a more detailed illustration of that, and then we'll look at how the master's mindset operates, and then we can see how we elevate ourselves from these two to the point of self-leadership and group leadership. And then from there, we can look at how we can change our community and our world. So my name is Michael Ankrah. This is just the beginning of several videos on this topic. Thank you for watching.